America was just another layover in my life. At least, that's what I used to think. My name is Anna Petrova, and for 8 years, I've been a flight attendant for a major Russian airline. My colleagues call me the Ice Queen. Why? Because I had traveled to 25 countries and had never been impressed by any of their cuisines. I'd never shed a tear over any landscape. The Eiffel Tower in Paris was just a steel structure. The Colosseum in Rome was just a pile of ancient stones. The Statue of Liberty in New York was just a copper statue. To me, every place on Earth was the same. It was just a workplace. My passport was filled with stamps from countless nations, but in my heart, there was no room for any of them. I was proud of this coldness. In my mind, showing emotion while traveling was a sign of weakness. Anna, this time we're heading to New Orleans. You know, where they have all that jazz music and street festivals. Yekaterina, a rookie flight attendant, chirped excitedly. I flipped through the flight manual without looking up. Just another city between the Atlantic and the Pacific. It's a one-night layover, then we're gone. Katya's eyes widened. Are you really a robot? There was a running joke among my colleagues that I was an android with a broken emotion chip. I didn't find it funny. Even as we prepared for takeoff, the in-flight entertainment was showing a Hollywood blockbuster, a scene where a superhero fought a monster on a coastline. The co-pilot sighed. American movies are amazing, aren't they? Some have even won Oscars. A movie is just a movie, I shrugged. Besides, all we'll see is the airport and the hotel. As the plane ascended from Moscow, the passenger next to me was intently reading a guidebook about New Orleans. I scoffed internally. Tourists are so naive. Every country is more or less the same. Anna, have you really never been impressed by any country? Irina, the head flight attendant, asked while handing me a coffee. Airports are all the same. Runways, duty-free shops, immigration checkpoints. For the past 8 years, that's all I've ever seen. My reply was always cold and formal. I sat in my jump seat by the emergency exit, gazing out the window. Throughout the 14-hour flight, I read a classic Russian novel. The characters in the book were more straightforward and easier to understand than people in the real world. Suddenly, the cabin announcement chimed. We are now beginning our descent into Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport. The local time is 2 p.m. I sighed and closed my book. Another checklist began. Check into the hotel. Shower. Sleep. Check out. Fly again. My life was like a suitcase endlessly circling on a baggage carousel. The aircraft gave a slight shudder as it touched down. The America I saw out the window was just another big city. After all the passengers had disembarked, we collected our luggage. Anna, I heard New Orleans is safe at night. I want to go for a walk, Katya said, her voice brimming with excitement. That's crazy. We have an early flight tomorrow, I said, shaking my head. But in that instant, a strange curiosity pricked at a corner of my mind. What could possibly be special about America? I asked myself. I didn't know why, but this time, a flicker of doubt arose. Of course, I wouldn't admit it. The Ice Queen persona I had built over 8 years would crumble. I had no idea that this place, which I considered just another stopover, was about to completely change my life. The United States would be the 26th stamp in my passport, and the first nation to claim a space in my heart. At that moment, I couldn't have imagined it in the slightest. The moment I stepped into Louis Armstrong International Airport, my eyes widened. Was this an airport? The architecture was infused with the soul of the city. Live jazz music drifted from a small stage in the main concourse. The floors gleamed, the ceilings were high, and most importantly, it was teeming with people, all moving with a relaxed energy. This is the airport for a single city? I muttered to myself. Katya pulled out her phone to take pictures. Anna, look at that. They have volunteer ambassadors. A smiling elderly man in a bright purple blazer was giving directions to a family of tourists. It was a scene I couldn't imagine at the Moscow airport. Though I feigned disinterest, I was, frankly, amazed. On the way to immigration, I noticed the automated baggage system. It was modern, but what truly caught my eye were the workers, who were joking with each other, their laughter echoing lightly. In Russia, work was often a silent, grim affair. It's a little different here, I accidentally said aloud. When I reached the counter, the officer asked in English, "Purpose of your visit?" "Transit. Flying out tomorrow morning," I replied curtly. Then the officer looked at my passport and broke into a smile, speaking in clear Russian. "Welcome, Miss Petrova." I was so startled I flinched, staring at him. How did he know my name? And he spoke Russian? the officer chuckled. "We get the crew manifests for international flights in advance. Welcome to New Orleans." I couldn't process the situation. In all my travels to 25 countries, I had never received such a personal welcome. It was usually just a next, a loud stamp, and nothing more. After clearing immigration, I stopped by the restroom. It was clean, which was standard, but by the sinks, there were bottles of complimentary hand lotion. A cleaning lady was mopping the floor. Suddenly, a man in a business suit walking past nodded to her and said, "Thank you for keeping this place so clean, ma'am," with a small, respectful tip of his head. I froze. In Russia, cleaning staff are often treated as if they're invisible. Why did this man even acknowledge her? What was even more surprising was the janitor's joyful smile as she replied, "You have a safe journey now, you hear?" The exchange was so natural it felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. While waiting for the hotel shuttle bus, people were lining up in an orderly fashion. No one was giving orders, yet everyone naturally respected the rules. If this were Russia, everyone would be pushing and shoving to get on first. "The people here are strange," I said to Katya. "The Ice Queen is starting to thaw," she giggled. When we boarded the bus, the driver said he would help us with our bags again, in perfect Russian. "Thank you, but we can manage," I refused out of habit. But the driver just smiled. "It's my job to help, ma'am. It's what we do here." At that moment, I was utterly confused. Why were the people in this city so kind? Was there some hidden motive? On the way to the hotel, the scenery of New Orleans unfolded outside the window. Historic buildings with intricate iron balconies stood beside modern skyscrapers. Neon signs glowed, and the streets were immaculate. Most importantly, the expressions on people's faces seemed bright. "It's just a layover," I told myself, but a small change was already beginning in my heart. The Ice Queen's heart was starting to crack. Once we checked into the hotel, our room was larger and cleaner than usual. The window offered a clear view of the city center. Motorcycles and cars moved in a steady rhythm between tall buildings. Dense signs for shops and restaurants glowed, and in the distance, the silhouettes of other skyscrapers. This city had a special rhythm, completely different from the heavy, oppressive feel of Moscow. In the room, there was a small bag of local chicory coffee. I brewed a cup. The rich aroma and bold, smooth taste were a surprise. In Russia, hotel rooms usually just have instant coffee. This small detail amazed me. Katya had already changed and was urging me to go out. "I really want to see the French Quarter. They say it's a shopper's paradise, and there are so many street food stalls." "We'll be back in time for the flight, I promise," she pleaded, her eyes sparkling. Normally, I would have refused flatly. But for some reason, this time I heard myself say, "Should we go together?" The word surprised even me. For 8 years, I had never explored any of my work destinations. The hotel room was my entire world. Katya clapped her hands in astonishment. "Really? The Ice Queen is melting!" An hour later, we were down in the hotel lobby. Soft jazz music was playing, and there was a faint, sweet scent of magnolia in the air. At the concierge desk, a young woman in a sharp uniform smiled a genuine smile. "Where are y'all heading this evening?" she asked, her voice warm. "The French Quarter," Katya replied. The concierge pulled out a colorful map and explained the streetcar route in fluent, careful Russian. "Take the Street Charles line down to this stop. Then, it's just a short walk. And if you use this jazzy pass, you get a discount for tourists. Don't forget to tap it on the blue machine." She even drew a simple map for us, marking points of interest along the way. "Thank you so much," I said, smiling shyly. In Russia, few hotel employees would go to such lengths to help a guest. The kindness of people here was making me suspicious. Were they just hoping for a big tip? But her sincere eyes made my skepticism waver. The streetcar was incredibly charming, with its mahogany seats and brass fittings. It wasn't silent. People chatted quietly, looked at their phones, or read books. No one was loud or disruptive. When we arrived in the French Quarter, the streets were alive with energy. Boutiques, art galleries, and restaurants lined the narrow streets. Katya was exclaiming "wow" constantly, darting in and out of shops. I had planned to just browse, but the staff in every store greeted us with a friendly smile, which felt strange. In Russia, you often encounter hostile glares when entering a shop. In one of the boutiques, a salesperson approached us. "Where are you ladies from?" "Russia," I replied. Suddenly, her face lit up as she spoke in broken but enthusiastic Russian. "Dobro pozhalovat," welcome. We have many products popular with Russian visitors. How did she know that? It was amazing. As we were walking, we started to feel hungry. While looking for a restaurant, I saw a city worker sweeping the street. Just then, a college-aged man walking past stopped and nodded at him. "Appreciate you keeping our city beautiful," he said with a smile. I stood there, frozen. I had seen a similar scene at the airport. This wasn't a coincidence. The street sweeper grinned. "Finished with classes for the day, son?" The student replied, "Heading to my part-time job now." That image deeply unsettled me. It was something you would never, ever see in Russia. There, a cleaner is just a cleaner. But here, people greeted them, even made small talk. "Katya, did you just see that? Isn't it strange?" I asked. "See what?" Katya tilted her head, her hands full of shopping bags. The student greeting the street sweeper. "You'd never imagine that in Russia." Katya thought for a moment. "That's true. Back home, we treat sanitation workers like they're invisible." At that moment, I felt a pang in my chest. A simple greeting I witnessed in this country could shake me so profoundly. It wasn't just common courtesy. It was a fundamental difference in how human beings treated one another. We sat down in a restaurant, but my mind was still filled with that image. "Appreciate you." Just 2 words, but they held so much respect and gratitude. Until now, I had visited 25 countries, and I had only paid attention to buildings, food, and landscapes. But the most important thing, how people treated each other, I had never noticed. The Ice Queen's heart began to crack even more from that moment on. Though I didn't realize it yet, America was destined to be not just a layover in my life, but a turning point. As I looked at the menu, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. Katya pointed to an item. "The gumbo here is famous. Should we try it?" My mind was a mess, but I nodded. A waiter came to take our order. Strangely, when he realized we were foreigners, he kindly explained the menu in simple English. In Russia, if you don't speak Russian, you're often ignored. When the food arrived, the waiter began to demonstrate how to eat it. "This here is the jambalaya. You add a little hot sauce, like this," he showed us with a smile. I awkwardly followed his lead. The complex, savory flavor that exploded in my mouth was astonishing. The waiter stayed by our table, explaining the local food culture. "Do you have to provide this level of service for every meal here?" I asked. "Of course. Guests are like family to us," he replied. His answer was so natural, it amazed me even more. After we finished, when it was time to pay, I handed him my credit card. The waiter said, "You're tourists, right? I'll give you a 10% discount." "Why?" I asked, bewildered. "Because we thank you for visiting our city." The employee's innocent answer left me speechless. When we stepped back onto the street, it suddenly started to rain. We didn't have an umbrella and were at a loss. An employee from a nearby shop ran out and handed one to us. "Don't worry about it. It's the shop's umbrella. Just leave it anywhere when you're done." I looked at him in disbelief. "Really? No deposit?" The employee shook his head, smiling. "This is New Orleans, ma'am. Don't you worry." As we walked under the umbrella, I said to Katya, "The people in this country are truly strange. Why are they so kind?" "I know, right? It's almost suspicious," she agreed. On our way, we saw an elderly man struggling to carry heavy bags up a flight of stairs. Amazingly, a group of teenagers nearby immediately ran over to help without being asked. "Look, there it is again," Katya pointed. "If this were Russia, everyone would have just walked past." I watched the scene in silence, my heart aching again. Why did these small acts of kindness between people move me to the point of tears? On the streetcar back to the hotel, a pregnant woman got on. Instantly, several people stood up to offer her a seat. In Russia, most people would pretend not to see. Back at the hotel, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about what made this country so different. It wasn't just simple kindness. The way people showed mutual respect was fundamentally different. On the bed next to me, Katya said, "We have an early flight tomorrow, but I feel sad to leave. I want to come back." I didn't answer, but I felt the same way. I had been on hundreds of flights, but this was the first time I felt a reluctance to leave a place. That night, I dreamt I was on the Moscow metro. Everyone around me was absorbed in their own world, no one making eye contact. But next to me sat an American. He smiled and said, "Thank you." When I opened my eyes, I felt something wet on my face. I touched it with my hand. It was tears, warm tears, streaming down the Ice Queen's face. This must be the magic that this country called America had given me. The next morning, looking out the window, New Orleans sparkled in the sunlight. Today was the day to leave, but my body felt strangely heavy. I had been to 25 countries, but this was the first time I didn't want to leave. No, it wasn't that I didn't want to leave. I wondered where this feeling was coming from. I had always thought of myself as emotionless, working like a machine. But yesterday's experiences had caused a subtle shift within me. "Anna, are you awake? Let's get some breakfast," Katya called cheerfully. In the elevator down to the hotel restaurant, the scenes from yesterday replayed in my head. The student greeting the street sweeper, the teenagers helping the old man, the shopkeeper lending us an umbrella. What was it about this country? The breakfast buffet offered both American and continental options. The American section had a special aroma wafting from it. There were dishes I didn't recognize, grits, biscuits and gravy, and steaming bowls of oatmeal. Katya bravely opted for the local fare, but I stuck to my usual toast and eggs. Conservatism was my nature. I never took risks, never tried new things. "Anna, try the beignets. They're warm and delicious," Katya recommended. I looked at the small, pillowy squares of fried dough dusted with powdered sugar. I reluctantly took one to try. It was unexpectedly delicious. Light, airy, sweet, completely different from any Russian pastry. I ended up eating several more. This was the first time in 8 years I had tried the local food at a hotel breakfast. After breakfast, we went to check out at the lobby. Suddenly, the front desk clerk informed us, "Ma'am, your flight to Moscow has been delayed by 4 hours." My heart leaped, not from anxiety about the delay, but from an unexpected thrill. 4 hours. I get to know this city a little more. "Don't worry, ma'am. We offer a complimentary city tour. How about a 4-hour tour of New Orleans?" "Really?" Katya asked, her eyes sparkling. "Yes, we don't want our guests to be bored. We have a special guide who will take you to the most unique spots in the city," the clerk replied with a smile, handing us a beautiful tour brochure. In Russia, they would have just said, "Our apologies, please wait." A guest's inconvenience was never their responsibility, but here, they offered a free tour. It was truly astonishing. 30 minutes later, we were sitting on a minibus for a tour of downtown New Orleans. The bus was brand new, the seats comfortable, and there were bottles of cold water and wet wipes provided. Our guide was a middle-aged man in a clean, sharp uniform with a friendly smile. He introduced the history and culture of New Orleans in perfectly accented Russian, even better than some Russians I knew. "You speak Russian very well," I commented. "I took classes specifically for our Russian guests," he said. "I love your country's literature and music. Dostoevsky and Tchaikovsky are my favorites." His answer surprised me again. The people of this city were so open and curious about the outside world. During the tour, we stopped at a small local restaurant. It wasn't large, but it was warmly decorated with a full Southern charm. Red checkered tablecloths, wooden chairs, and local art on the walls. "Here, we'll try some famous Southern fried chicken." The owner is the third generation, carrying on a 50-year-old family recipe, the guide explained. The chicken was a deep golden brown, crispy, and sprinkled with a special blend of spices. Katya didn't hesitate. "Wow, it's so fragrant and crispy," she exclaimed, her eyes wide. I cautiously took a bite. Crispy on the outside, tender and juicy on the inside. The spices were aromatic, a flavor completely different from the greasy fried chicken in Russia. It had so many layers of flavor that I couldn't resist another piece. The owner, an elderly woman, saw this and immediately brought us some iced tea. First-time tourists might find the chicken a bit rich. This sweet tea will help. It's the most famous drink in the South. Amazingly, she even brought out a separate plate of chicken with a milder seasoning and a small complimentary bowl of bread pudding. "Why are you doing all this?" I asked, puzzled. "I just want y'all to love our Southern food. Go back with good memories of New Orleans. That's all that makes me happy," the old woman said, smiling warmly, crinkles forming around her eyes. At that moment, I felt a warmth spread through my chest. This wasn't just simple kindness. It was a genuine caring that came from the heart. I had never seen anyone try so hard just to make someone else like their food. In Russia, most people were only interested in profit. Back on the bus, I gazed out the window and wondered, where does this warmth from the American people come from? Why are they so kind to strangers? "New Orleans has been through a lot of hardship," our guide explained. "We've had hurricanes, floods, and poverty. So people learn to help each other to survive. That tradition has been passed down to today." Hearing those words, my eyes welled up. a shared history passed down into individual actions. Because they had known pain, they were able to be more gentle. On the way back to the hotel, Katya whispered, "Anna, this is the kind of place I've dreamed of, where people care about each other." I nodded silently. The ice around the Ice Queen's heart was melting away. The warmth of America was changing me. On our way to the airport, we decided to take one last short walk through the city. We still had a little time before our flight. The streets were clean, and people bustled about. "Look, a farmer's market," Katya pointed. As we stepped into the market, a lively atmosphere and a myriad of aromas welcomed us. There were stalls of fresh seafood, vegetables, meats, and unfamiliar prepared foods. Markets in Russia were often dark and musty, but this one was clean and organized. "Come on and have a look, ladies," the vendors greeted us warmly. Katya stopped in front of a po' boy stand. "This looks nothing like anything I've ever eaten. Should we try it?" "It might be too heavy," I cautioned, but she had already ordered two. "Two, please." Katya held up 2 fingers. The old woman behind the counter started making our sandwiches. Slow-roasted beef, sliced thin, was piled high on fresh French bread. The sight was impressive. We didn't have food like this in Russia. "Here you go, darlings. I made them a little less spicy for you," the woman said, handing me a plate. I took a bite, half brave, half scared. Wow. The aroma exploded in my mouth. The beef was incredibly tender, the gravy rich and flavorful. Katya had the same reaction. "This is delicious!" we exclaimed in unison. The woman beamed at our reaction. "Y'all like it? I'll add some extra pickles and dress it up for you. Makes it even better." But then something even more surprising happened. She started making a whole new po' boy. "This one's on me. It's my special family recipe. I want y'all to taste the real New Orleans." We thought she would charge us extra, but she didn't. It was purely a gesture of goodwill, wanting us to eat something delicious. I had never encountered such sincere generosity before. "That's okay. We can't possibly eat more," I said politely. "Nonsense. Tourists are always like that. When my son went abroad, he had a hard time getting used to the food there." I understand, the woman's words touched me deeply. The new po' boy was indeed delicious. The perfect balance of savory and rich, the beef soaked in flavor. She even gave us a free bag of Zapp's potato chips. "Enjoy, and come back and visit our city again," she smiled happily. When we finished and went to pay, the price was surprisingly low. In Russia, they would have charged a premium for tourists. This is too cheap. "Please, let us pay more," I said. But the woman just waved her hand. No, just come back next time. That's better." Leaving the market, Katya said, "People here value kindness more than money." I nodded. Yes, this country values people more than things. Caring for one another is the foundation of everything they do. A look at my watch told me it was time to go to the airport. In the taxi, the scenery of New Orleans flashing by the window was etched into my memory. The historic buildings, the clean streets, and most importantly, the warm smiles of the people. The taxi was immaculate. The driver had a small cross hanging from his rearview mirror. He was about 50, wore glasses, and looked kind. "Where are you from?" he asked in simple English. "Russia," I replied. He immediately reeled off the names of several Russian cities: Moscow, St. Petersburg, Vladivostok, then named a few Russian singers. Seeing my surprise, he smiled. "We're all one world, aren't we? We're all friends. I've seen Russian movies. I love your culture." His words touched me deeply. In Russia, taxi drivers are usually silent, grimly focused on driving. But this driver chatted with us like a friend. The Ice Queen's heart had melted completely. On the way to the airport, the America seen from the taxi window was astonishing. Clean streets, orderly traffic, and most importantly, the bright expressions on people's faces. In Russia, most people wear a permanent scowl or look angry. There were many cars on the road, but everyone respected the traffic laws. At a red light, everyone waited patiently. No one honked their horns. It was a scene that would be impossible in Moscow. "What is the pace of life like for people here?" I asked the driver, curious. "Not too fast, not too slow. Just right," he answered. "We believe in laissez le bon temps rouler, let the good times roll." His words were so philosophical. In Russia, everyone is always in a hurry, with little patience. "We still have a little time. Want to take a quick look around this area?" Katya suggested. Hearing this, the driver said, "I'll take you where the locals go. Not the tourist spots, but the real life of New Orleans." We got out of the taxi and started walking down a street near the airport. A fresh sea breeze blew, and the sky was a brilliant blue, a stark contrast to Russia's often gray skies. This was a small residential community, with a mix of traditional shotgun houses and modern apartments. The streets weren't wide, but they were very clean. Unfamiliar tropical trees lined the sidewalks, lush and green. As we were walking, we saw an elderly woman pushing a cart. The cart was laden with fruit mangoes, satsumas, Creole tomatoes. It looked like a mobile fruit stand. The cart looked very heavy. Suddenly, as she rounded a corner, the cart tipped and a wheel got stuck on the curb, sending fruit rolling onto the street. If this were Russia, most people would have just walked by. Honestly, that was my first instinct too. For 8 years, I had become accustomed to ignoring the troubles of strangers. But then, something amazing happened. 2 high school boys and an office worker in a suit who were nearby immediately rushed to help. They helped gather the scattered fruit, carefully placing it back on the cart. Then, they helped push the cart back onto the sidewalk. No one hesitated. No one was afraid of getting their clothes dirty. "Are you all right, ma'am?" they asked with concern. The old woman looked a little shaken but quickly managed a smile, nodding her thanks repeatedly, her eyes moist. What was even more amazing was that after helping, they each bought some fruit from her before leaving, paying more than the asking price. "You take care of yourself now," one of the students said as he walked away. "Look, Anna," Katya said, her voice trembling with emotion. They didn't just help, they also considered her income and her dignity. I watched the scene, my eyes burning. New York, Paris, Moscow. I had never seen anything like this in any big city. This wasn't just simple kindness. It was a way of life, a culture of caring for one another, of treating strangers like family. We walked over and bought some fruit ourselves. The mango was sweet, the satsumas fragrant. The old woman smiled happily and gave us extra. "Are you girls tourists? Eat up. Our Louisiana fruit is famous all over the world. Good for you too." Her accent was local, but her eyes were warm. Her face was deeply wrinkled, but her smile was gentle. At that very moment, I realized that this country wasn't just technologically advanced, it was the hearts of its people that were truly developed. The heart to care for one another, the heart to readily help a stranger. That was the true progress of America. As we walked on, eating our fruit, an old man suddenly collapsed onto a bench, looking unwell. Immediately, people around him rushed to help. A young mother quickly called for an ambulance. Others helped the man into a shaded spot. Another person ran to a nearby shop to get some cold water. Even a motorcyclist passing by stopped and asked if help was needed. "Sir, the ambulance is on its way." "Don't worry," everyone comforted him. "Anna, these people are like one big family, the way they look after each other," Katya said admiringly. I watched the scene silently and had a sudden realization. For 8 years, I had only seen buildings, food, and landscapes. I had never seen the true face of a country. The people, the bond between people that is the most beautiful scenery of any place. On the way back to the airport, we were both quiet, lost in our own thoughts. Something inside me was changing. The wall of ice that had protected my heart for 8 years was melting away, piece by piece. The Ice Queen's cold heart was being warmly thawed. "Anna, when we get back home, what will you miss the most?" Katya asked. I thought for a moment and replied, "The people, their smiles, their kindness, and the way they treat each other." When we arrived at the airport, I felt a strange sensation, as if I were leaving home. It was funny. I had only been here for one night, but this country already felt like a long-lost homeland. On the way to the departure hall, I looked back at America one last time and thought, I have to come back. This time, not just for a layover, but for a real visit. Before boarding the flight back to Russia, I bought a small souvenir from a duty-free shop, a keychain shaped like a Mardi Gras mask. This wasn't just any souvenir. It was a testament to the country that had sparked a change in my heart. In the Ice Queen's heart, a small, warm flame had begun to flicker, a flame kindled by the country called America. Standing in front of the immigration counter, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. I had only been here for one night, yet I felt such a strong reluctance to leave. This was a first. Katya felt the same. She looked around and sighed. "It's crazy. I've only been here a day, and I already love this country," she smiled. "It's not crazy," I replied sincerely. "This place is truly special." After clearing security and entering the duty-free zone, we still had some time before our flight, so we slowly browsed the American cosmetics, local crafts, and snacks. Normally, I would have walked right past, but now everything seemed meaningful. "Look, Anna," Katya pointed excitedly. "Isn't that the old lady who made us po' boys yesterday?" I followed her gaze, surprised. It was indeed the woman from the po' boy stand in the market. She was pulling a suitcase, walking with someone. "Hello," we walked over to greet her. The woman looked at us, puzzled for a moment, then broke into a wide, happy smile. "Oh, you're the two girls who had my po' boys yesterday. What a coincidence to see you here." "We're flying back home today. What about you?" I asked. "I'm here to see my daughter off. She's going to study abroad in Russia." Her answer stunned us. "Really? Which city?" Katya asked excitedly. "Moscow. She's going to study music." The young woman who appeared to be her daughter smiled shyly. Suddenly, a warmth filled my heart. The kind person we met yesterday was now here, as a mother sending her daughter to Russia. The world is so small and wonderful. "I live in Moscow. If she ever needs help, please contact me," I said, handing her my business card. The woman took it, deeply moved. "Really, dear? Thank you so much. It's her first time in Russia, and I've been so worried." Suddenly, she took something out of her bag. It was a small, handcrafted doll in a traditional Southern belle dress. "Take this as a souvenir from New Orleans, a little good luck charm." At that moment, my eyes welled with tears. A stranger I had met only yesterday was now giving me a gift like an old friend. This was a first for me. "Thank you so much." "I have a gift for your daughter, too," I said, pulling out some Russian chocolate from my bag. "This is the most famous chocolate in Russia." We exchanged gifts from our respective countries. It wasn't just an exchange of items, but an exchange of kindness. The airport announcement echoed, "The flight to Moscow was now boarding." We said our goodbyes to the woman with a heavy heart. "See you in Moscow." On my way to the gate, I stopped by the restroom. There, I ran into the janitor from the airport yesterday. She was still wearing her orange uniform, her hair gray, but she moved with energy. Amazingly, she recognized me. "Well, hello there, the foreign girl from yesterday. Are you leaving already?" I didn't recognize her, but she remembered me. Suddenly, my heart felt warm. In such a bustling airport, how did she remember a foreigner she had only seen once yesterday? "Yes, I'm leaving today. How did you remember me?" I asked, my voice filled with emotion. "Oh, I remember all the foreign flight attendants. I always wonder what y'all think of our city. I hope you're taking good memories with you." She smiled happily, the wrinkles around her eyes blooming like a flower. Then, she pulled a small keychain from her pocket. It was a string of Mardi Gras beads, a souvenir from New Orleans. It's not much, but it's a little something from me. This time, I couldn't hold back my tears. They streamed down my face like broken pearls. I had been to airports all over the world, but this was the first time a janitor had recognized me as a human being and even given me a gift. In Russia, cleaning staff are the lowest rung of society. No one pays them any mind. But this woman carried herself with such dignity and warmth. "Thank you so much. I will never forget you." My voice trembled so much I could barely speak. Seeing me cry, the woman gently patted my shoulder. "Don't you cry now, child. New Orleans welcomes you. Just remember the good things about our city, and remember that there are still good people in this world." She held my hand. "You come back now, you hear? New Orleans will always welcome you." Her hand was rough but so warm, like a mother's hand. I took the keychain with a shaking hand and walked to the gate. Katya saw my tears and was shocked. "Anna, this is the first time I've ever seen you cry." "It's the first time I've seen myself cry, too," I replied, smiling through my tears. For years, I thought I was incapable of tears, that my heart had turned to ice, but the warmth of America had given me back my humanity. As I boarded the plane, I took one last look at America through the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold. This was no longer just a layover. It was a turning point in my life, a destination for my heart. Seated on the plane, I looked at the keychain and thought, America has something more advanced than technology, a spirit of respect and care for one another. That is true progress. As the plane took off, a new resolve formed within me. The Ice Queen was no more. The warmth of America had changed me completely. Now, I was ready to go back to Moscow and share that warmth. But I had no idea that my story in America was about to create a massive phenomenon online. When I returned to Moscow, for the first time in 8 years, I did something different. I shared my experience in America on social media. I always thought America was just another layover, I wrote, but a 2-day experience completely changed my perspective on life. The people there taught me what true warmth is. I wrote about the janitor at the airport, the woman at the po' boy stand, and the countless small acts of kindness from strangers. I described their smiles, their patience, and the care they showed to foreigners. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of comments poured in from people all over the world. They shared their own experiences in America. I felt that same warmth in New Orleans. The people there are truly different. Their hearts are so beautiful. That country made me believe in the goodness of humanity again. When I got lost in New Orleans, a stranger walked with me for 10 minutes to make sure I found my way. A week later, the airline made me a special offer. They were opening a regular route to New Orleans and wanted me to be the head flight attendant, responsible for the cultural exchange between Russia and the USA. I accepted without a second thought. I wanted to set foot on that warm land again. 2 months later, I was standing in Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport again. This time, it wasn't for a layover, but to start my dream job. As I passed the same restroom, I saw the same janitor. She saw me and greeted me joyfully. "You're back." "I knew you'd be back." "I'm working the New Orleans route now. I'll be here often," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "That's wonderful, child. Welcome home." Home. That word sounded so right. America had truly become my second home. 6 months later, I applied for long-term residency in the United States. I wanted to learn English properly, to understand the culture of this country on a deeper level. A year later, I opened a small Russian cultural center in New Orleans. I wanted to introduce my country to the American people, just as they had shown me their warmth. The woman from the po' boy stand visited often. "My daughter is doing so well studying music in Moscow thanks to you. She adjusted so well," she would always say. The janitor, after retiring, also visited my center frequently. "You've made our city famous all over the world," she'd say proudly. No, that's not true. It was America that changed me. I didn't make America famous. After living in the United States for a year, I came to understand the special nature of this country on a profound level. Every morning when I went to the farmer's market to buy groceries, people would greet me, "Anna's here," as if I were part of the community. The vegetable vendor would pick out the freshest produce, especially for me. The fruit lady would always let me taste for sweetness first. The fishmonger would teach me how to pick the freshest fish. This sense of acceptance was something I had never experienced in Russia. In Moscow, neighbors are strangers, but in America, I felt the warmth of a community. Learning English was a joy. My teacher was Miss Mallory, a retired English teacher in her 60s. She would patiently correct my pronunciation and grammar. "Anna, the phrase 'thank you' needs the right intonation. It's okay. Practice makes perfect. English is hard. You're improving so much." Her words were a great encouragement. Sometimes, I went hiking with my American friends in the nearby national parks. The nature in America was beautiful, but what was even more beautiful was the time shared with friends. My American friend, Plaquemine, was a nurse, cheerful and kind. She always looked out for me, the foreigner. "Anna, you've changed so much," Plaquemine once said. "When you first came, you were so cold and quiet. Now you're so much warmer, and you even make jokes." I smiled. America changed me. The people here taught me to connect with life through my heart. During Mardi Gras, Plaquemine's family invited me to celebrate with them. Even though I was a foreigner, they treated me like family. We threw beads from balconies, ate king cake, and enjoyed the parades. The atmosphere was warm and filled with joy. One day, there was an emergency on the streetcar. An elderly man fainted and collapsed. People around him immediately rushed to help. Some called an ambulance, some administered first aid, some kept the crowd back. I also went to help, using the English I had learned to comfort the man's wife. "Ma'am, don't worry, the ambulance will be here soon." The woman squeezed my hand and said, "Thank you, dear. You speak English so well." At that moment, I knew I was no longer just a foreigner. I was part of this society, able to contribute to it. 3 years later, today, I stand at Louis Armstrong International Airport, not to leave, but to welcome a special guest. Yekaterina is coming to work in America. She was selected by an American airline and is about to start a new life in New Orleans. After she heard my story, she immediately applied for a job here. When I see her walk out of the arrivals hall, I'm reminded of myself 3 years ago, the cold, skeptical ice queen. There's anxiety in her eyes now, but also anticipation. Anna, she runs to hug me. You look so different, so alive, and so warm. You think so? I smile, my heart filled with gratitude. You used to have eyes as cold as ice. Now they're warm like autumn sunlight. We take a bus into New Orleans. Katya stares out the window with the same curiosity I had 3 years ago. But the difference is, now I can introduce everything to her. So this is the place that changed you? It wasn't just the place, I reply, looking at the familiar scenery. It was the people. America taught me what true human warmth is, and you're about to experience it. When we get to New Orleans, I take her to that same market. It has become my ritual. Every Russian friend who visits, I bring them here. The woman from the po' boy stand is overjoyed to see us. She's in her 70 seconds now, but still going strong. Anna, you brought a new friend, she asks in her warm southern drawl. Then she tries to add some English. Welcome to New Orleans. She's Russian, too. She just moved here for work. I introduce her in my now fluent English. The woman immediately starts making her special po' boy, milder seasoning, finely chopped meat, and extra vegetables. First-timers need to take it slow. Once you're used to it, you can have the original. Seeing Katya's amazed expression, I remember my own shock the first time. The feeling of being so deeply cared for by a stranger is unforgettable. You're going to love it here, I tell her, my eyes filled with confidence. That night, in my small apartment, Katya asks, "Do you regret leaving Russia?" I think for a moment and answer, "Not at all. I found my true self here. In Russia, I was just a cold machine. But in America, I learned to be human." Is the Ice Queen really gone? Gone. The warmth of this country melted all the ice. Now, I'm just Anna, an ordinary person who can laugh, cry, and love. I pick up the Mardi Gras keychain the janitor gave me and the doll from the po' boy lady. For 3 years, they've been with me. They aren't just souvenirs. They are symbols of my return to humanity. Every time I see them, I remember the warmth America taught me. Katya looks at me seriously. I want to change like you. You can, I say firmly, holding her hand. America has a certain magic that makes people better. The people here will use their warmth to melt the ice wall around your heart. The next morning, we go to a rooftop bar overlooking New Orleans. As we look down at the entire city, the sun shines down, making everything sparkle. This city is full of stories, I say, pointing to the streets below. Every corner holds a warm memory. Everyone has a story of kindness. Tell me your most precious memory, Katya asks. I think of the janitor I met at the airport on my first day. Her simple thank you changed the course of my life forever. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can have the biggest impact. One word, one smile, a small gesture of care can change someone's life. Now, I say thank you to every service worker, not just them, but everyone who serves society: cleaners, police officers, nurses, teachers, drivers. I've learned to see the value in everyone. Over the past 3 years, I've learned the American philosophy of life. Treat everyone as an important individual. Care for those around you with your heart. Show great love in small things, and believe that people are fundamentally good. My friends who go back to Russia say, "I've changed a lot. You're so much warmer and more charming," they say. "Your smile seems more genuine." I hope to bring this warmth back to Russia, but I know that change takes time and dedication. It took America 3 years to change me. Perhaps I'll spend a lifetime helping more people feel this warmth. Every time a Russian friend visits, I take them to that market to meet the woman from the po' boy stand. She always says, "America welcomes you. We are all one family." And she puts her heart into making the best food, just as she would for her own children. This is America. Not because of its advanced technology, not because of its beautiful landscapes, but because the hearts of its people are beautiful, because the people here believe in the power of love and kindness. Standing on the rooftop, I say to Katya, "Welcome to the place that will change your life. Get ready to be embraced by warmth." A gentle breeze blows. New Orleans sparkles below our feet. Just as that janitor said 3 years ago, "You come back now, you hear?" I did come back. Not just to visit, but to stay. This is my home, my roots, my present, and my future. The story of the Ice Queen has ended, but the story of Anna, a daughter of America, has just begun.